He has been recognized as a drilling expert for oil and gas, not only in India, but all over the world. I'm thankful to our institute for providing all logistic support for organizing this program. Today's session will be on geothermal energy, a promising aspect for scientists in their quest to find a long-time solution to our energy demands, along with renewable and greener sources of energy. Before starting with today's conference, I would like to request all the attendees to please keep their mics muted for a smooth conduct of the session. Attendees can jot down their queries in the chat box. We will be having a separate Q&A session for that.
Lastly, I welcome everyone who are participating in the program through the designated web platform. I firmly believe that we would be enlightening much over the subject, which has a crucial role to play in energy transition. After hearing Sir's thought-provoking lecture, I welcome you all again on behalf of FIPI IIT ISM student chapter for attending this program to make it a grand success. Thank you all. Now, taking the interaction ahead, Sir, we will be more delighted if you could motivate us by your words. The virtual podium is all yours.
Thank you, Siantan. Thank you, Shiksha. Thanks for that warm welcome. Can we do something about these pop-ups coming up whenever someone joins? Is there a way to turn them off? Okay. Anyways, guys, so thanks again for inviting me. And geothermal energy, as you know, or you may know, is one of the oldest forms of energy, as old as solar, used by the human species. And being a Earth Science Specific Institute, or ISM used to be an Earth Science Specific Institute, geothermal energy is something which is right up the alley of Earth Science students like petroleum engineers, geoscientists, mining engineers, and such. So without any more delay, let me start the presentation, guys, and feel free to drop messages, and I will take the questions at the end of presentation, unless someone get any burning questions. You may interrupt me. Okay, guys, I hope you can see my slide.
Yes, sir, it is
Okay.
visible.
So just a very brief on what we are trying to do with ANP GeoEnergy. So it's essentially a startup, and we are basically trying to develop geothermal energy as a source of renewable energy for India. And we firmly believe that India should not rely on its current energy mix for transitioning to net zero. We need another source, which is a base load source of energy, and we will go through the details a little bit more. And our clients are mainly oil and gas companies, refineries, power generation companies, industries requiring low-grade heat. We will discuss all these, what these industries are. Yeah, so we are based in Gurgaon basically, and we became active last year. It's been almost a year, and we have a team of 3 active geoscientists and engineers, plus we have a board members which include an ex-CEO, a very well-renowned geologist and petrophysicist, and a very well-renowned commercial advisor. So with that, we have all the ingredients in place to develop geothermal energy as a source of renewable energy for India. So let's talk about why do we need geothermal energy? Why do we think that India need another source of renewable energy? So if you guys have been following the development of solar and wind energy and energy transition story of India, till 2015 or before 2015, energy transition was not the hot topic as it is now. There was some work going on solar and wind, but it was more more a baby for European countries. Right, and India had some solar power installed, but it was nowhere on the radar. And then everybody saw the pollution levels in India, and we had a new government in 2014. And then the COP21 summit happened in Paris in 2015, where our Prime Minister promised to take us on the path of energy transition. And we made significant strides. A target of, I think, 175 gigawatt of installed renewable energy was promised to be achieved by 22, which was indeed achieved. One of the, in our country, government promises are always taken with a pinch of salt, but government did deliver on this, and it was quite a major achievement. But what it took to achieve that, in real terms, we added 11 gigawatt of electricity production capacity every year. That's quite significant. And what it means is that our installation capacity grew at a rate of 22% every year. That's very, very significant in a country where we used to grow by in single-digit numbers, low single-digit numbers. So a growth of 22% was quite impressive. And with that, in 2021, COP26 happened in Glasgow, where we made further promises. And we said that we will have 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel energy capacity installed. What we mean by non-fossil fuel is basically renewable energy plus large hydro. Large hydro is not considered by India in renewable energy as of now. We only have solar, wind, biomass, and small hydro in it. Yeah. So, but what that means is we have to add 39 gigawatt of capacity every year. So that's more than three times of what we have been doing so far, and 31% of compounded annual growth rate. So when you put so much, and the whole world is doing this, not just us. So you can imagine the strain it would put on the resources, right? And solar and wind both are extremely resource intensive sources of energy. And one of the resources they use most is the land. And land, as you know, is already in short supply for our country. And if you see this chart here, wind, land use intensity for wind is almost 72 square kilometer per terawatt hour. So solar is almost half of that, 36, 37 square kilometer. Geothermal compared to wind, geothermal is 1/10. So it's almost just a small production site that you have to put to produce the same amount of geothermal energy in terms of land. So just to give you an idea of the scale, how much land. So if suppose you have to power a city like Delhi with solar, with renewable energy, solar and wind, so you will need an area which is larger than Delhi to produce that much of renewable energy. So that should give you an idea that why we think that solar and wind is not really sustainable and we need to diversify. And that's why you will see another important thing is that all the prime spots, wind and solar are location specific, right? There are sweet spots where you get the best sunshine and where you get the best wind, and those spots are all taken. And that's why government is moving into offshore wind now, because almost all the spots on land are taken, or the prices have become so high that it's just not sustainable anymore. And the second resource that they use most intensively is minerals, metals. Lithium used heavily in the batteries, graphite again in batteries, cobalt, nickel are used in PV cells, batteries, turbine blades, rare earth metals. Aluminium is used, which is not captured here, but aluminium is used. Almost 70% of material in a solar PV is aluminium. So you can imagine how much strain it will put on the resources if we have to install that much capacity. And you have to remember the lithium, cobalt, nickel, rare earth, all these metals are imported in India. So there's a whole geopolitical angle to this thing as well. And what it's doing around the world is it's pushing the prices up for these resources. If you have been tracking the metal index, you will see, so this projection for prices, just a second. How do I get the, okay, I'm not getting the pointer, but that's fine. So if you see in the lithium, this projection was done by IEA in 2020, and they predicted that prices of lithium and nickel will start going up immediately. And we are in 22, and both lithium and nickel have followed the projection. So the lithium prices and nickel prices has recently rallied. Same thing has happened to aluminium. And if you see, if we have to achieve the sustainable development goals that has been set in these COP summits, so our consumption of lithium will increase by 42 times compared to 2020 to achieve these goals just by solar and wind. So you can imagine how much production of lithium will have to increase, and given that there are only limited sources, how much pressure it will put on the price. And what I'm trying to bring out here from this is that with all these constraints and all on the resources, what will happen is the prices of solar wind will go up. And the reason solar and wind became so cheap were all the countries put in a lot of money into it. But now when the resources will become scarce, the electricity from these resources will not be so cheap. So if you can imagine the coal, a coal plant, when it's not the peak time, produces electricity somewhere around 1 to 2 rupees per unit. Solar used to be 15 to 20 rupees per unit back in 21, so back in 2011. And now the large, mega large solar and wind projects sell electricity around 2.5 rupees per unit. So almost 1/10 the price from what they used to be. But this price is obviously not sustainable, right? And those are the reasons why we say that we need another source of renewable energy. And we firmly believe that geothermal energy can be that source. So some of the distinguishing things about geothermal energy is that it's a proven technology, first of all. I mean, it has been produced in the world since 1910s, 1920s. So there is nothing new, no new technology we have to invent here. Another biggest advantage they have over other renewable energy sources is that it's baseload power. What do we mean by baseload? Baseload energy is basically a source of energy that is available to you 24/7, right? So solar and wind are available only when the sun shines or the wind blows. So, and their availability is something like 30 to 40% a day. Yeah. Geothermal compared to that is availability is almost 90 to 95%, which is even higher than coal. So you can rely on it to be a reliable source of energy, which we call a baseload energy as well. So, I mean, if you ever see the electricity profile of the country, there are peaks and demands. So first peak come in the morning when we all are getting ready to go on for our business. And then there is a trough that comes all afternoon when there's a lull on the demand. But there's always some demand, but it's not a peak. And then the evening when we all are coming back to homes and everybody's together, then the demand increases again. So solar and wind only provide electricity certain period of time, but to meet the demand of those peaks and troughs, you need a source of energy which is always available. Yeah? And that's why in the recent times, if you have seen, same thing happened when the supply of the coal was in shortage. There was a panic around the country. Yeah. And because the policymakers know that solar and wind will not provide electricity all the time. So that's why we are so enthusiastic about geothermal energy. And in the map on your right hand side, what it is shown, it's a map produced by Geological Survey of India, and it shows the areas which are likely to have geothermal potential. And when I talk about geothermal potential, this is magmatic geothermal potential, meaning the heat is basically coming from the water that is in touch with the magma, or, or in the mantle of the earth. So you guys know, right? There is a crust, and then there's a mantle, and then there is a core. So a lot of times the conventional geothermal which you see in Indonesia, in Philippines, in US, in Iceland, is the one where water is in touch with the magma in the mantle, and that's basically heating the water which is coming to the surface. So in India, these are the places where we think that the crust is thin, and we can easily reach the mantle. The water is connected to the mantle. So you can, and if you see carefully, some of these areas overlap with our sedimentary basins as well. So in the Cambe, this where my pointer is, that area overlaps with our sedimentary basins. Than this in Arunachal. Some of this area overlaps with our sedimentary basins. Same in the KG basin, some in Andhra, some of this area overlaps. Okay, so I just want you guys to keep that in mind, because that's going to be our focus. So where can we use geothermal energy? Okay, so you guys have to understand that geothermal energy is basically heat, nothing but heat. Yeah. If you look at a conventional power plant, we burn coal. Basically, if you look at a thermal power plant, what we do is we burn coal to generate heat, and we use that heat to boil the water and take it to a supercritical temperature, supercritical stage, and then we use that steam to drive the turbines and generate power. What we are doing here is we already have that steam coming out of Earth. We don't have to burn coal. So essentially, we are using the heat stored in the water. So that heat can be used for generating electricity, but for several other purposes as well. And those are industrial purposes, like if you are producing paper, and depending on the temperature of the steam. Let's say you have steam somewhere from 150 degrees C to 200 degrees C. You can use that in paper production. If you know about the industry, you will know that to produce the paper, first the wood is turned into pulp, right? Then it's mixed with several chemicals, and then using source of heat like burning LPG, coal, or biomass, they dry that pulp and turn it into paper. So geothermal energy, geothermal heat, if it is above 150 degrees C, can be used to dry out the pulp rather than carbon emitting sources like coal, biomass, and LPG. Same way, there are many other uses depending on the temperature. You can use it for evaporation of water to recover salt. You can use it for refining of sugar, where you have to dry the solution from which the sugar comes. You can use it for desalination. You can use it for concrete drying. If you get the temperatures which are not in the boiling point range, so if, let's say, if you are at your geothermal energy is somewhere below 100 degrees centigrade, which is most easily available form of geothermal energy. If you see in the mountains in Himachal, Uttarakhand, and all, there are a lot of springs where water comes out at 70-80 degrees C. So that kind of heat can be used for, and it is already used in Europe and places like that, for heating houses, for heating water, and uses in winter, for defrosting, for a lot of places in mountains, the ice got deposited on the roads, so they have pipes running under the roads which carry geothermal heat, so that the roads are always frost free. You can use it for greenhouses. Places like Iceland, which never had any agriculture, because of geothermal, they have so much greenhouses that they are almost self-sustainable. Yeah, so a lot of uses of geothermal energy. Doesn't matter what temperature you have. Yeah. And one of the interesting applications is that the electricity you produce from geothermal energy, it's green electricity. So if you put an electrolyzer and make hydrogen, then you have green hydrogen on your hands. Excuse me, guys, just a second. I'm gonna switch off my camera for a second. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. So let me resume. Okay, so that's all about that's all about, yeah, okay. Uses of geothermal energy. One key takeaway I want you to take from here is that when you use geothermal energy in any of these industries, you are basically decarbonizing that industry. All the industries nowadays have huge focus on decarbonizing or offsetting the carbon footprint of their operations. And these industries which use heat from sources like coal, biomass, LPG, they have a huge carbon footprint. So by using geothermal energy, all these industries can significantly offset their carbon footprint. So that's one of so with geothermal energy, what we do is we can decarbonize the whole value chain. And when you guys have time, I want you to go to I want you to Google Iceland geothermal village. So these guys have made a village in Iceland, which is powered by geothermal energy, and it's cascades. So what they do is when the geothermal steam comes from Earth, it's at around 200 degrees centigrade. So first they use that steam to produce electricity. Then the steam that comes out after production of electricity is at somewhere around 100 degrees C. Then they use that steam to heat their homes. Part of it goes to heat the homes. Rest of it goes to greenhouses, and some of it goes into heating pools, spa. So they have a whole tourist attraction, a village, which is supported exclusively by spent geothermal energy. So whatever is the spent heat left after production of electricity is used till it is almost at the room temperature. So you can see it can be how it can be used for several purposes. Okay, so now I just want to talk a little bit about why geothermal energy didn't take off in India. So globally, almost 318 gigawatt, 15 gigawatt of capacity is installed globally in geothermal energy, whereas the potential has been estimated as almost 318 gigawatt, almost 20 times. Yeah. And you must have heard about that ring of fire thing around the Pacific, which is more suitable for Western United States, than going from Indian Himalayan arc all the way through Philippines, Indonesia, Japan. So that's a very likely location for geothermal energy, right? But the challenge with geothermal energy and why it has not picked up compared to other sources of energy. First of all, geothermal energy cannot be transported as easily as oil and gas, coal, those kind of things. So that's why it's very location specific, right? Drilling technology is not as developed, right? You can essentially you can get geothermal energy anywhere in the world, but the challenge is you have to drill deep, very, very deep, and drilling is expensive. And then we also don't have technology to go very deep. So those things have always restricted the development of geothermal energy to the locations where we know for sure that we can tap into a geothermal source quite shallow, around 2000 to 2500 meters. That's when a geothermal project becomes economic. So there's a lot of development going on in the world right now where they are looking at ways to basically make geothermal energy feasible anywhere in the world. And that has been the biggest challenge so far. If you see compared to if you have to compare geothermal with other sources of renewable energy, you have to ensure that they are base load. So what we have done is we have taken solar plus battery storage, wind plus battery storage, and geothermal. And we try to compare it on various factors like land use, waste generated, life cycle, greenhouse gas emissions, capex cost, availability, metal usage, and you will see geothermal is better everywhere. All these except the risk. The reason geothermal energy has not developed is because of the high level of risk, right? And that's our focus. That's where our company ANP GeoEnergy focus is, to take that risk element of risk out of the equation so that the geothermal energy can be developed economically and profitably. So what we are essentially doing is developing this technology called well repurposing technology. And we are targeting medium to low enthalpy geothermal energy. So when I say medium to low, that means when the temperatures at surface are 150 degrees and below, right? When you go into 150 degrees and above, that's medium to high enthalpy geothermal energy. So what we are doing is we are focusing on oil and gas fields. Oil and gas fields are buried somewhere around 1 kilometer to 5 kilometers deep, and temperatures can be quite high where oil and gas exists. We drill a lot of wells to get this oil and gas out. So what our focus is that the oil and gas wells, which have the right temperature, but are not producing oil and gas anymore, we will repurpose those wells by retrofitting them. By retrofitting, I mean either recompleting them, reperforating them, or doing something else to make sure to produce water from them, hot water, instead of oil and gas. And that's what you see here. So for example, this well is producing oil and gas now, yeah, and we are sending the production to an oil and gas processing plant where we are separating oil and gas from water, and water is being re-injected, which is a normal normal injection drive reservoir production plan. So all we are doing is, instead of producing oil and gas, once the reservoir runs out of oil and gas, or once a particular well stops producing oil and gas, what we do is we plug the perforations in oil and gas, we recomplete the well and make new perforations to produce a separate reservoir, if such a reservoir exists, which has water in it and the right temperature. So we produce water, and instead of oil and gas plant, we send it to a power plant, geothermal power plant, which extracts the heat from it, converts it to electricity, and then we send the cooler water back to the injection well, and it goes into the geothermal reservoir to heat up again. So you can see it's like a loop, completely sustainable, completely green. There is no water handling, there is no waste being generated, and you are getting an infinite loop. The earth keep producing heat, and you keep producing hot water. The earth keeps heating the water, and you keep producing that hot water and extracting energy. So now you can see how it is a renewable source of energy. And what we are doing is we are taking the risk out of the equation is that we don't have to drill wells to explore geothermal energy, right? We know the wells are drilled already there. We know what are the temperatures. We have the logs. We know where the reservoirs are. All we have to do is a desktop exercise to see where the right reservoir is, go and put a power plant and produce water, right? So the cost can be reduced by up to 30% because we are taking the drilling out of the equation, and there's a certainty there, right? You know your reservoir, you know your temperature. So that's why we are saying that this technology can take the risk out of the equation. And this is what I was telling you earlier, that there are overlaps between sedimentary basins and the geothermal provinces. And as you can see, some of these basins are already proven. Cambay is already producing, Assam is already producing, KG is already producing. So those are the areas we are currently evaluating for this technology. And our early evaluation shows that we can produce almost 20 gigawatt of electricity by converting the suspended wells to geothermal energy producers. So this is a basic equation, just to throw some equations at you on how to calculate the geothermal reserves. Just like oil and gas reserves, when you calculate oil and gas reserves from a reservoir, same way you can also calculate how much energy you can produce from a reservoir. And energy is stored in water and in the rock, in the reservoir, right? So there are different formulas, very similar to the way you calculate oil and gas reserves, very similar to that, using specific heat of the rock, specific heat of the water, the porosity, the saturation, the temperatures that are existing there, and what will be the temperature after we take the heat out, produce the water. So you calculate the heat in rock, you calculate the heat in water, you add that, and you get your energy reserve, how much energy is there. And you can convert that with another, with using this formula, you can convert that in, so this is the energy stored, and this is the energy that you can generate. So these are there are papers published, these are very standard equations used worldwide. So yeah, like I was saying, you can see from North Cambay Basin, we are almost expecting 20 gigawatt, 19 megawatt from these fields. So if you add all of this, this comes out to be around 175 megawatt, but this is a very earlier estimation. And just based on the number of wells which are suspended. If we take into equation all the exploration wells which are abandoned, if they turns out to be dry, if we convert them into geothermal energy producers, plus the wells which are abandoned already, so our estimation is that this number can go up by at least 1,000 times. So that's how we reach a number of 20 gigawatt. And then this is only 2 basins. If we add Assam basin, if we do more, if we review the more Kaveri basin, if we review other exploration done in the Reva basin, Damodar basin, that this number has potential to increase significantly. So just to throw some more numbers at you, another reason the geothermal energy didn't develop in India is because of the cost, because of the risk and the drilling cost. The cost of electricity produced from geothermal projects was coming out to be quite high, right? It used to be 8 to 10 rupees, somewhere between 8 to 10 rupees per unit, when the solar and wind were selling for 3-4 rupees per unit, and if you add battery to it, it goes up to 7-8 rupees per unit. So based on our calculations, with repurposing technology, we can produce electricity at 6 rupees per unit, which is not as cheap as solar and wind, but then it has a benefit of being available 24/7. So just to give you an idea of scale, a 5 megawatt geothermal plant will produce same amount of electricity in a year as a 25 megawatt solar plant. So you can imagine, because of it being available 24/7, you don't need to install a very large plant. A 5 megawatt geothermal plant is equivalent to 25 megawatts, so 5 times more electricity. And this is basically a comparison of what are the tariff that different solar and wind plants are selling their energy at. And the larger the plant, the cheaper it is. But as I told you earlier, so far the graph of solar and wind prices have been going down, and that's when all these projects were done. But now, if you track the recent news, you will see that the solar and wind prices have started going up now because of all these resource constraints. So we expect in next 5 to 6 years, geothermal energy will become at par with solar and wind energy. And that's when the real kick will come and the real money will flow into geothermal energy as well. Yeah, that's a short and sweet presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Happy to take questions.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for this valuable knowledge. This is for the first time where we are learning about energy transition, we first year students. I can say that this topic has increased our interest in the petroleum field. The way you have told us about the energy transition, about the power plants, power production, challenges in the geothermal economy, and how the people on mountain are using energy to live their life was very interesting, sir.
Good. Thanks. Happy to be happy to impart some knowledge. And yeah, I mean, any other questions, guys? I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. So I guess it's mainly first year or all years.
So mainly students are from first year.
Okay. Good to see. Good to see first year taking initiative.
So one question has arrived us. The students want to say that everyone today's generation is more into softer skills. So they want to know that they want to work with multinational companies. They want to have a desk job. So, sir, future scope in oil and gas is always a topic of discussion between us petroleum students. What would you say to the new graduates, sir?
I mean, software skills are important. To succeed in petroleum sector, you need to, of course, have core skills, but core skills are not sufficient anymore. You need to know about data science. You need to know about artificial intelligence, machine learning, because I mean, all the sectors are going through a technology transition. The just the core knowledge doesn't cut it anymore. All the industries are transitioning. All the companies are transitioning. If you see, the multinationals have started using data science extensively, machine learning extensively. They are making digital twins of their wells. So before a well is drilled, they are making digital twins of their wells to predict failures, to predict problems, and to address them in time, right? So, as a petroleum engineer, nobody expects you to be capable of building a digital twin. But what they expect you is you know that it can be built, how it will be built, what will be your input, and what input will be required from the specialist who will be building this twin, and where will be the application of this technology. It's about there will be experts, right, who will do this for you. But as a petroleum engineer, you need to be able to understand it enough to talk to them in their own language. So that's what an expectation from new generation of petroleum engineers is going to be. And just being petroleum engineer is not enough anymore. All the companies are going through energy transition, right? So you have to be more of an energy engineer. So you have to know about, of course, geothermal. You have to know a little bit about solar and wind as well. You have to, that another thing that is going on is how to offset carbon emissions. All the companies are chasing that. So as a petroleum engineer, you should also learn where are your carbon emissions. If you're managing an operation, if you're producing a reservoir, where is your carbon emission, where is your carbon footprint, and what you can do to offset that. So those are the things a new today's petroleum engineers should know and understand. So yeah, that's what industry is expecting. And that's what they will teach you as well.
Yes.
What else you guys want to know?
Yes, sir. Sir, the second question is that, sir, we all know that work on the first day of the job is really hectic. So mistakes can happen. So were there any hurdles you faced on your day one that you wish to share with us?
Day one. I don't even remember that day one. But what should I say? I mean, it's a learning curve, guys. I mean, don't try to be prepared for everything, right? College cannot prepare you for everything. Keep an open mind and be ready to learn. I mean, when you go in the industry, people don't expect you to know everything. I mean, they know that you're fresh out of college. They don't expect perfection from you. They know you will make mistakes. Just be open to experiences and be open to learning, and rest everything will fall in place. You cannot learn everything in college, right? So I
So
guess
the
that's
third question.
go ahead.
Yes, sir. So the third question is, sir, we all know that in these years, your company, Manan Oilfield Services and ANP GeoEnergy Pvt Ltd, has gained lots of fame and carries a high reputation. Right? So if you could tell
Thank
us
you.
how you managed to put the idea of an oil and gas company to reality, like what are the things that you did to make this a reality?
I have been, as you know, almost 16 years in this industry. And one thing we always noticed was there was a lack of indigenous consultancy in India, right? There were a lot of companies that keep popping up and then disappearing. And what would happen is that whenever an expertise is required, oil and gas companies will always look abroad, right? And what we saw is when I went abroad to work and when I went abroad to study, what I saw that there's a lot of respect for Indian talent outside India, and they will happily hire us to manage their local teams. So the idea was that why do we need expats to manage our operations in India? Why can't we do that here? And that was the idea. I mean, that's basically our ultimate, how do you say, foundation, right? Indian talent for Indian companies. I mean, of course, we have a lot of foreign experts. We partner with them, foreign companies all the time. There are a lot of skills that we don't have, but our target is that we should have all these skills in house at some point of time in future. And that's where we are moving towards slowly. We are building a team of engineers, geoscientists, with all kinds of specialties, hydraulic frac engineers, completion engineers, testing engineers. Basically, they should deep water specialists. So the idea is to have this pool in India that we can tap, not just for India, for global operations. We already have operations going on in Africa and Eastern Europe, where our engineers are supporting those operations. So that's was the founding idea of this thing, and that's the direction we are taking this in. And rest is just perception management, guys. You just keep yourself visible, talk to people, and rest will just comes through.
Okay, sir. We would present our next question, sir, from the audience.
Mhm.
What other skills are deemed necessary in the industry apart from the technical ones?
Communication skills are definitely, I will say, everybody agrees after spending some time in industry that communication skill is the most important thing. When you talk about soft skills, as a leader or as a beginner or as a starter or as a junior, you always need to be able to communicate properly, convey your ideas properly, right? Should be able to present in a forum, should be able to hold a conversation. But the biggest important thing is when you are communicating your idea, you should have conviction, right? You should be assertive, not argumentative, but assertive, right? And yeah, I think everybody in the industry will agree that, especially the students from ISM, when I um, compare them with, or at least in our time, I'm not sure about. I haven't worked with any ISM graduate in recent times. Graduates from other universities, private universities, used to be a lot better at communication. So that is something that maybe you guys are doing better than when we graduated. But yeah, if you are not, focus on communication. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Another question from the audience, sir. Is the
Yeah.
geothermal energy in India mature enough that one can think of starting a career in it? What is the way through it?
So it's certainly not that mature in India. I wouldn't start a career with geothermal energy. Um, I guess you guys should focus on oil and gas for now. But oil and gas has a lot of complementary skill sets with geothermal energy, so you can switch anytime you want. There's a 90% overlap between the skills required for geothermal and oil and gas. So focus on technical skills from oil and gas, and switching will not be a challenge at all. but stick with oil and gas for now.
Yes, sir. We would move to some on other questions, sir. So, can you suggest some straightforward techniques that any average person can use as geothermal energy in his house?
Okay. I mean, so one thing that is usually done in a lot of places outside India is for heating and cooling. There is something called a ground source heat pump. So what basically there, you can just Google that, and it's a very, very simple thing to install in your homes. What you are doing is that I will tell you the concept. The concept is simple. When you go 10 to 15 meters down into the deep into the earth, the temperature is always constant around the world, right? It's always 25 degrees. So idea is that you lay down a network of piping in a closed loop, 10 to 15 meters deep, buried near your house, and you circulate water through those pipes, and that water is basically is your heat source and heat sink both. So let's say when it's hot, 35 degrees, yeah, outside temperature is 35-40 degrees as it is in Delhi now. So what you do is you're circulating that water, and that water is passing through 25 degrees centigrade temperature, and it is cooling down, right? And when it's coming up, you're blowing air through that water. So what it will do is it will cool down the air, and that air will cool down the temperature of your house. And reverse will be applicable when the temperature is it's winters, and let's say temperature is 10-15 degrees. Water will be 25 degrees, and it will heat up your homes. So that is the simplest application of geothermal energy that anyone can apply at their homes. It's cheap. It doesn't take much. All you have to do is set the pipeline and ducts in your home.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is, so what do the foreign companies have better in comparison to India's current geothermal techniques?
India doesn't have a geothermal technique. I mean, I explained you that in India, people have never thought of it as a traditional source of energy. And conventional geothermal energy has been quite expensive to produce. And then we don't have that many volcanoes. Most of the sea places you will see, they are near the volcanoes. So it's easier for them. They already have steam seeping out of the earth, so they just go drill and tap it. But what we are doing now, where the industry is moving now, is where we go and explore for geothermal energy, where you don't have any visible signs at surface. So, I mean, to answer your question, I mean, there's no comparison between Indian companies and foreign companies when it comes to geothermal energy, because there is no geothermal energy work happening in India.
Thank you, sir. Sir, another question is, sir, are the machineries that are required in the sector are imported from foreign? If so, then what's the problem in manufacturing them, at least in India itself?
So machinery is pretty much straightforward. We don't need to import it anymore. I mean, it's same as drilling a well. Most of the machinery is comes from, it's the casing, it's a drilling rig, it's cement, drilling fluids, all that. It's all available in India now. What you have to import is a power plant. That is something which is not available in India, right? Because there has been no geothermal work done, so there was no reason to manufacture these things in India. So maybe if there's a lot of work going on, somebody will start manufacturing those in India.
Thank you, sir. We will move to the next question. So, there were times when oil prices were at low key and many companies invested in solar or wind energy to accelerate the transition. So, sir, how do you see it as a challenge in the path of oil and gas technical skills?
So that's one thing that we tell people from oil and gas sector as well, that you have zero overlap of skills with solar and wind, right? As an oil and, for example, a company like ONGC, other than project management, they have no complementary skill sets that are required for solar and wind. right? And what they are doing, they are not really creating value for ONGC. Yeah, they are not going to become a solar company. The reason they are doing is to offset their carbon footprint. So that's what we are trying to explain to people, that for an oil and gas company, it's much more feasible to invest in geothermal energy and leverage their inherent complementary skill sets of geoscience, of reservoir engineering, of seismic interpretation, drilling, completion, production. You know, the list is endless. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So I think
Sir, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sir, is the exploration of the geothermal potent areas similar or different from how we explore the oil and gas?
It's There are similarities, no doubt about it. I mean, when you go and do exploration, I mean, there is a concept that where you will find geothermal energy, right? And where will you find oil and gas? You will find oil and gas in sedimentary basins. You will find geothermal energy where there has been lava flows, basaltic flows, those kind of areas where there is a metamorphic rocks or igneous rocks, those kind of places, or there has been a rift. Once you know which are those places, you go there and you look for surface shows. Same as oil and gas, you go and look for seeps. Same as this, you go for surface shows. Surface shows are hot springs. So once you know there is a hot spring, then you can start next level of your techniques, like magnetotelluric survey is the most common one. Then you do some shallow parametric wells to understand the geology better. And some people do seismic as well. And there are various techniques. I'm certainly not an expert in exploration techniques for geothermal. But yeah, I mean, there is a certain overlap. It's not a huge relearning. I mean, if you are an explorer for oil and gas, it doesn't take a lot of learning to explore geothermal. It's very much similar.
Okay, thank you, sir.
thank you, sir. If anyone of you still
Okay.
has any question left, you can write it in the chat box. All right. So I don't see any questions coming. So, sir, a last question for you. So, as you all know, you are an alumni of our college. So, sir, if you could kindly share some of your memories or highlights that you shared on the campus, it would be a privilege for us to hear from you, sir.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I last time I went to ISM was 2013, yeah, for the recruitment for KN India, and the college has, it's almost unrecognizable now. So yeah, I mean, one of our favorite areas were, of course, canteen. Ramdhani I was not so fond of, to tell you the truth. You will find a lot of alumni singing songs, but I was not that fond of Ramdhani. Volleyball courts in Diamond. We used to, or my petroleum batch spent almost 60% of time playing volleyball in Diamond. Diamond hostel courts. That was a great time in the final year. What else? I mean, I don't know if you guys still give bumps on birthdays. That was quite a interesting time we used to have. Every night at midnight, somebody will get beaten up. What else? Yeah, I mean, lot of fond memories, guys. I mean, I will be here all night if I start on that. But yeah, this is the most memorable experience any of you will have. Right?
Yeah. So we have one more question from the audience.
Yeah,
What are
dangers
the
involved
dangers
in exploration of
involved in
geothermal.
exploration of geothermal energy?
I mean, dangers. I mean, exploration. I mean, if you're asking for safety wise, Safety dangers, I don't see any dangers. I mean, we are not using explosive devices like seismic exploration here. So other than that, I don't see any, I'm not aware of any dangers. I mean, just keep away from the hot steam. I guess that can burn you. Other than that, not really. Other than the financial dangers, of course. I mean, you'll be sinking a lot of money to explore. And that's why we are focusing on well repurposing, because you don't have to explore. You already know your temperatures and you already have the logs. You know how much energy is there. Right. So that's the core of what we are trying to do, to take the risk out of exploration, of development.
Okay, sir. So here we come to the end of the meeting. We consider ourselves immensely lucky today, sir, that we got to interact with you. The insight you provided us with the industry as such as early stage of our engineering journey is truly an eye-opening. We all thank you for your guidance, sir. We will work ahead with diligence and stick to the principles and advices and knowledge you have provided us today, sir. And an emerging and promising topic of interest. Hope every student has enjoyed this meeting and learned something new today. Thank you, sir, for joining today's meet, sir. Surely we will follow the things and the principles you have set us today.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Any,
So would you
anything
like to
else?
speak?
Sorry?
So would you like to speak something?
No, I'm just saying thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah, stay in touch. I guess I get a lot of invites on LinkedIn from ISM students. I make it a policy to accept everyone's invite. So yeah, keep following us and drop me a message on LinkedIn.
Yes,
If
sir.
I reply quite quickly as soon as I can. So yeah.
Yes, sir. So I would like my friend Sayantan to officially close the webinar for today.
I, on behalf of FIPI IIT as a student chapter, extend a hearty vote of thanks to Mr. Pulkit Goel for gracing us with his intellectual presence. With this, we come to the end of the meet. This is your host, Santan Sengupta, and my co-host, Siksha Lehre, signing off. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.